Today I'm going to show you how to turn a serendipitous moment in an everyday Zoom recording into powerful video content. As it turns out, this video explaining my steps is actually longer than the time it took me to create the video project I'll help you replicate. Here's what you'll need to follow along: a tagline, brand colors, a logo file, and most importantly, a Zoom recording file. Now, what I'm going to show you is not a guarantee of results, but a technical behind-the-scenes look at how I followed this method to create a marketing video for fellow business owner Ali Lucari of Bright Organizing Solutions using a serendipitous moment I just happened to capture in Zoom. I'll note that I had Ali's consent to feature her in this video, and I always recommend getting the consent of anyone you feature in your videos. I'm using a video editor called Camtasia to create the final video. A lot of editors will have similar features to Camtasia, so you can probably still follow along using your own editor of choice. In Camtasia, each new master video you create is a separate project. You might have a series that have a similar look and feel, which you can accomplish by creating a project template file for yourself. But in this case, you're starting from scratch, so the first step is to just create a new project. Now, before you start video editing, you want to make sure that your video is the right size for what you want to do, which you do under Project Settings under the File menu. TikTok videos, YouTube Shorts, and Pinterest videos will need to be in a vertical format, but the goal of this video is to share on LinkedIn and Facebook. So set the dimensions to be a standard horizontal video, 1920 by 1080. From this point on, anything that you want to appear in the final video has to fit within this video canvas. Anything outside of this video canvas will be cut off. So now it's time to get to work. If you're brand new to a video editor, there are some standard sections to look for. Tools and Assets, where you can find transitions, stock library items, and manage which files you want to use in the project. The Preview window, where you can see how things look while you work. Properties and Settings, where you can control things like the opacity of a video clip you're working with. And a Timeline workspace where you do your main editing. So, you know what files you want to use here, but you need to tell Camtasia what files you want to use for this by adding them as media to the project. Once they're added here, they're ready to use. In this case, that's the Zoom recording, which might take more than a second to load up depending on the file size of that recording, and the logo file, which in the case of this example is an animated GIF. To use media, you'll drag it onto something called a track in the workspace area. A track is basically a layer. No matter how fancy a video seems, it's really just a stack of layers. And just like any stack or pile, you can cover things on the bottom with things on the top, which really comes in handy. So, select and drag the Zoom recording on the track and butt the beginning of the recording right up against the beginning of the timeline. This file has both the audio and video of the Zoom recording, which is fine for this project. Unless I've already taken care of this some other way, the first thing I like to do with any audio I bring in is noise removal. So under Audio Effects, select Noise Removal and drag it onto the Zoom clip. This will not get rid of barking dogs, but it will get rid of some of that ambient fuzz that gets picked up from the background. You can see that's been added successfully by selecting the Zoom clip and looking at the audio part of the Properties section. There are some settings you can play around with, but I'll leave them at the defaults. Since I'm working with the side-by-side Zoom recording, but I'm only using Ali's side, I need to crop the Zoom recording to just show her. So above the preview window, I'll change my edit mode to crop mode, which changes the markers around the video from circles to squares. And I can now drag those squares until the Zoom recording clip is only showing Ali's square. And now I'll change back to edit mode so I can drag things around at will instead of cropping them. Now it's time to select just the snippet for the marketing video, which starts around time 43:06 and ends at 58:24. So there's this little playhead above the workspace that you can drag around and go to exactly that time in the video and in the preview window. I'll move that to 43:06. If I use the zoom feature to zoom way in and also increase the track size, I can see from the audio part that she's in the middle of talking, but about to start a new word. I don't care about any of the stuff that came before this moment, so I'm going to cut it off and delete it. With the Zoom recording clip selected and the playhead exactly where I want to cut, I'll use the split tool to cut the Zoom recording clip into 2 clips. If I use my mouse to select one side of the playhead or the other, you can see that those clips are now really 2 separate things because they're no longer being selected together. I'll select the one that I don't want to keep and hit the delete key on my keyboard to get rid of it. That's the beginning of the clip taken care of. And now I'll move the playhead to time 58:24 and use the split tool to cut the Zoom recording there as well and delete everything after the end of the clip I want to keep. If I zoom out, you can see that this track is sitting 43 seconds away from the beginning of the timeline. So with my mouse, I'll select it and drag it to the beginning of the timeline. In the preview section, you can see that left about 15 seconds of video. Now, if you look at this cropped video relative to the size of the video canvas, you can see that it's pretty tiny. Since Allie and I were not planning to use this video anywhere, we didn't do anything to optimize the overall video quality or adjust our lighting to make ourselves look better. That means that I didn't want to increase the size of the video to fill the frame, but I could fill the frame with things that enhance the video snippet. So I'll add a purple background to fill the frame, and that will use the branding colors for Bright Organizing Solutions. In Camtasia, you can do this with a little annotation rectangle, which you can find under Annotations and Shapes. Drag that onto a track and resize the rectangle using the little balls around the edges of the rectangle, and go ahead and take advantage of the fact that anything that hangs over the side of the frame will be cropped off in the final product. This helps to make sure you haven't accidentally left some empty space. If the rectangle is bigger than the video canvas, then you know you've definitely filled the frame. And you can use the settings to change the color. The branding color I want to use for Bright Organizing Solutions is 6B556C. The outline color doesn't matter because the outline is outside of the frame and no one will ever see it. Now, since I just dragged this rectangle into the workspace, Camtasia made room for it by adding a track above my other track, and now the video of Allie is completely covered up because higher layers sit on top of lower layers. To get everything in the correct order, right-click on the track that contains the Zoom video and insert a track below that track. Then, click on the annotation rectangle and drag that below the Zoom video. Notice how the rectangle doesn't take as much time as the Zoom video snippet, but you want to fill the background the entire time the Zoom video is playing. So, move your mouse to the end of the rectangle clip and drag the edge until it takes up as much time on the track as the Zoom video recording snippet. And now you can drag the playhead back and forth over the Zoom snippet and see that the purple background is behind it the entire time. To add in the tagline above the video, you'll use another annotation. This time, you'll use one of the callouts. I'll grab one with no color background, just text, because I want the background I've already set to show through. You can drag that annotation onto a track. In the settings, choose the font family, size, and color. Double-click on the annotation to select all of the text for editing and type in the tagline you want to use. Using the circles on the bounding box of the annotation, you can resize the box until it fits the text at the font size you want. And you can add in line breaks if you want to. Now you can move the tagline text and Zoom video snippet around in the frame until everything is laid out the way you want it to be. Note how Camtasia will show yellow lines to indicate that the thing you're moving around is centered in the frame. To sort of finish it off so it doesn't end abruptly, I'll fade out Allie's video to the logo of Bright Organizing Solutions. To make this a super easy transition, I'll add another track below the Zoom video snippet. And this is where I'm going to drag the logo file. Since it's animated, I want that to line up nicely with the end of the Zoom snippet and still give it a few seconds on the screen after the animation has played out. And I'm going to select the clip of Allie and change the opacity for a second to make sure that she's lined up with the logo the way I want her to be when that transitions. And then I'll crop the logo file so it's the same size as Allie's Zoom window, which will also make the transition nicer. And then I'll make sure that Allie's opacity is set back to 100%. If it were left like this, Allie's video would play and then just abruptly disappear in favor of the logo. It needs a transition. Under transitions, grab a simple fade and drag that onto the end of the Zoom recording. You can see that it starts to fade while she's still talking, which isn't good. So I'll delete the transition, put the playhead at the end of the clip after she's done talking, and extend the frame a few seconds to make sure there's plenty of time for the fade. Extending the frame like this basically takes that one moment in the clip where your playhead was, freezes it, and stretches it out for longer than it actually took. Reapply the fade to the end of the Zoom recording snippet, and then use your mouse to adjust where the clip ends so that the fade only begins after the audio ends. Now, trim up the ends of everything to end after a reasonable amount of viewing seconds have passed. I'll pick about 23 seconds as the end time for my final video, and I'll keep the tagline and the background up for the entire video. And now it's time to share it with the world. From the Share menu, select Custom Production and then New Custom Production. I always use an MP4 file format for my final video. Click all the way to the Finish screen, where you'll set what file name you want to use for the final video, and select a folder location where you want it to go. I also check the box for Organize Produced Files into Subfolders so that it puts everything it's about to make into a new subfolder in the location I just selected, and select Finish. You'll have to wait a bit while that works. When it's finished, be sure to save your Camtasia project file, and then navigate to the folder that Camtasia just created and check out your new video. So, what moments have you captured in Zoom that you can turn into powerful video content? I'd love it if you swing back here and drop a link to whatever you produce. If this video helped you, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and share it with someone else who needs it. I'll close out by playing the video that you just watched me produce. If you would like to learn more about Bright Organizing Solutions, there's a link to that website in the description of this video. You can find me on Calendly and LinkedIn. I'll see you next time.
Maybe that's part of my messaging that I need to just shut up and admit to, that nobody has as much fun as I do, but we can get done.